And we are live. Hi, everyone.
Hi, everyone. Welcome to our second Serverless Days Amsterdam online meetup. I hope you are doing great. According to the current situation, it looks like we're doing pretty well. We might even are allowed to go into the sun again outside this year, so that's great. Today we'll have some great speakers, Manuel Riezebosch and Olaf Conijn, and I hope I pronounced that correct-ish,
I think you did.
correctly enough. Thank you. Let me just shortly introduce myself. I'm Lian, and I'll be your host tonight. And with me we have Mark,
Hi, everyone.
who's our host and tech person. So I'm just going to give you a quick introduction into what Serverless Days is in case you don't know. And all the ones that see me do this presentation every time, just, I don't know, go dancing. So Serverless Days, yes, this is our Meetup edition. And we're online due to the circumstances. But it worked great last time. So we're just going to continue doing this for the time being. So Serverless Days used to be JeffConf. That's what it used to be called. And the story behind it is that there was supposed to be a serverless conference once upon a time 3 years ago, which didn't happen. Then some of the attendees got so fed up that they said they would just start their own serverless conference. They named it JeffConf because Paul Johnston, who was one of the original creators, I think he wrote a blog post about that serverless is just a name. It doesn't matter. It could also just be called Jeff. And so they call it JeffConf. Then for reasons of diversity and inclusion, they then decided to instead call it Serverless Days. So this is a map of the Serverless Days events all around the world. So as you can see, there's a lot of stuff happening from the west coast of the US all the way to New Zealand. And if you can't find yourself on this map, if you can't find your country, then feel free to reach out to us and we'll help you set up your own Serverless Days conference or meetup. So this is a community conference. So you're part of the community, so we hope that you will be part of this and create something yourself.
Yeah, and the recent edition was, I think, the Belgium team, right? They have a new, new stuff there.
Something that, I think we can be very proud of it because I don't know if this was the original creator, but Nick van Hoof, he was an attendee at our last conference.
Yeah.
And at some of our meetups, and he's really excited about serverless and serverless days. So then he reached out to us if we could help him create his own serverless days Belgium. And they have their first meetup next month. They were also starting to organize a conference, but again, due to the circumstances, they decided to postpone that conference for now. But there's going to be a meetup next month, I think May 20th, which I now remember because yesterday I tweeted out that it was yesterday, but it was a month later.
Yeah, indeed.
Yeah. So this was the conference last year. It was at Packhaus de Zwijger, which was super nice. Weather was great, which for Amsterdam, let's be honest, it was April, so we were very, very lucky. We were hoping to do something similar again this year. Unfortunately, didn't happen, but we will, of course, still have the conference as promised, but it will just happen online in a similar format as we have right now. So you'll be able to watch the live stream on YouTube and on Twitch and on Periscope, and you'll be able to take part content-wise on Discord or in the respective chat rooms.
Yeah, and with live Q&A sessions with the speakers. Oh, I think you're on mute now. You don't hear anymore.
Yes, I am.
Yeah, you're back.
I am. I don't know what happened. Thank you. the good thing is that online you have the possibility to directly talk to the speaker. You don't have to find them in a hallway. Just message them. They will be there in our Discord on the day of the conference. So yeah, this is a picture from the inside, and as I said last time, one of the speakers here to the left was so smitten by how amazing the conference was that he now became part of the Orga team, which I'm very, very happy about.
Yeah. Thanks.
Yes, in case you didn't know, it's Mark. Yeah, maybe you can get your buddy to join the Orga team for next year.
I actually talked to him, was it this morning or yesterday? Because he's doing stuff, of course, with the virtual DDD conference, and he was also thinking about getting it online. So I helped him out a tiny bit on that respect. So yeah, also busy with
I mean, we take all kinds of contributions. So if you want to help us organize this conference or the next conference or any of the meetups, you can reach out to us. I will let you know how later in a later slide. But yeah, so this is the conference for this year, and I haven't updated the picture, but the speakers are announced by now. We haven't announced the specific schedule yet, but we will very, very soon. And the conference itself is going to be on May 8th, which is in 2 weeks. Can you believe it? It's in 2 weeks already. Yeah, surprising how quick the time goes. But you can sign up for this conference on our website, serverlessdays.nl or serverlessdays.amsterdam or amsterdam.serverlessdays.io, or you scan this QR code. And the tickets are for free. So, why not? We're going to have free access to the O'Reilly online learning platform for all of our attendees. And we'll be raffling off some cool stuff for the people who actually attended. So you should definitely sign up and come join us.
Exactly.
So for today, our agenda is 2 awesome talks, like I said before. First one is Manuel Riezebosch. Sorry about that. He's going to tell us how to test the expletive out of our functions, and we'll have a Q&A session after. Then we're going to take a short break, and after that, Olaf Conijn will be telling us about organization, about the AWS organization using org formation. And of course, we're going to have a Q&A after that. This time, if you've been here last time, we had 2 recorded sessions. This time, Olaf will give his talk live, so he won't be able to see your questions during the talk. But if you have any questions or any comments, you can put them into the chats, Twitch or YouTube or Discord, and we'll read them out in the Q&A session. And then after the conference, the meetup is officially over, we'll have the speakers stay on with us on Discord for a while if you have any more questions or you want to discuss anything else. So join us there. One or 2 housekeeping things is that, yes, we're recording and live streaming this meetup on YouTube and Twitch. So you probably know that because you're watching us right now. In case you are not or want to switch to the other platform, feel free to do so. You can, as I said before, join our Discord server to have a conversation with the speakers or the organizers. And last but not least, we expect all of our attendees to follow our code of conduct, which in short is just don't be a, expletive.
Yeah, be nice.
We haven't had any problems. Yeah, we haven't had any problems ever so far because our community is amazing. But, just in case, you can read the COC. Yes, exactly. You can read the COC there. And if there's anything happening, let us know. We're on standby in all the aforementioned channels. So this is our meetup mascot and the slide that reminds me to introduce our first speaker. So our first speaker, as I said, is Manuel Riezebosch, and he is a consultant at Xspirit. And so by what he says, he's very passionate about technology, but his personal interest is to make the developers' lives easier, and by developers he means himself. So yeah, give it up for Manuel.
Hi, this is.
Are we starting? Oh, sorry, I'm 5 minutes early. Oh, I'm so sorry.
That's okay, I guess. We can start 5 minutes early with
we can start 5 minutes earlier, or if you would like to, we can have a 5-minute discussion about something. I haven't prepared any specific discussion now.
Oh dear. Yeah. Okay. Well, I'm curious because we're the people. We ask people to register for the conference, and that's because we are giving away prizes and stuff. But I'm wondering, what would people what would people trigger in order to register for the conference? Because we are planning to buy also some prizes to give away.
Yes.
So yeah, if you have good ideas of what you might want, then please leave it in the chat comments. Because we can make sure we can buy some of these prizes and raffle it out to you. So please feel free.
This is our problem right now is that we have all the sponsorship money and now we don't know what to do with it, which is a very luxurious problem to have. So, it's a free for all. Just suggest whatever you want. Might not get you that house on the Maldives that you wanted, but O'Reilly has graciously offered to send us some awesome books about serverless and cloud native in general. So anything like that.
Yeah, and JetBrains is offering a couple of licenses to their products for 3 people.
Exactly.
So that's already in these prizes.
Yes. Yeah. So anything that's preferably online. And remote, attainable. Yeah. Any ideas? We're all ears. And besides that, I don't know what would get people to join the conference. I mean, obviously we have some awesome speakers. We're gonna have Anne Stanley, who will be talking about the history of serverless. We have Simona Koten. I forget what her talk was. I know I should have been better prepared. Wait, I will find that out. So she will be talking about serverless at the end of the universe, which is the, I guess, marriage of serverless and state.
Yeah, or the end of the universe. Yeah. I mean, that's describing the current affairs anyway, right? So yeah,
there's only one way to find out.
Fitting.
Is to attend the conference, right? Yeah. And we're going to have, this is something that we're experimenting with now, is the expert panel. So during our talks, when we used to have coffee breaks and such, we would invite a couple of experts to talk about the sessions, talk about some interesting topics. You can suggest some topics for the panel to talk about. And so you can just be even more part of the content and the conversation and the conference. So I think that's pretty awesome.
Cool. Right.
I'm just checking the Discord chat. Oh, there's someone from Finland joining us. Awesome. And Jojo, who's the speaker last time, is saying, "Mark the OBS king."
Not nearly, but thanks. Yeah.
Yes. And then Jojo also asked if we could donate the non-used money to an organization helping with COVID-19 or something like this. We definitely could.
Yeah.
I mean, we still are hoping that we can spend the money on something cool for the attendees and the speakers. But yeah, if we have something left, why not?
Yeah, that's a lot.
But to be honest, it's not that much money. It might sound like more than it actually is. And we usually invest everything that we have into the next event. But I mean, let's just see how it goes. The tickets are free, so it's not like we're making a lot of money off this now. But that's not what it's about. It's about the community. And that's why we're all here.
Yeah.
Hey, awesome. Now it's 6:30. I think this was a great great end of the introduction.
Okay, let's start with the Manuel session.
So yes,
Here we go.
So here we go.
Hi, this is Manuel Riezebosch for ServerlessDays Amsterdam. I'm from the Netherlands myself. I'm an official licensed professional Scrum trainer and I teach the professional Scrum development training. My favorite topics are test-driven development, Git and Scrum. Today I will be showing you how I've been developing Azure functions for the past 2 years using a very rigid test-driven development approach where I apply the red-green refactor cycle all the time. To do that, I already created a first pure unit test where I validate my assumptions, where I discover the API on how to receive an HTTP request, read the body from it and deserialize that body into an object and validate that that object is correctly deserialized. If I run this function, if I run this test, you see I get great feedback that this JSON indeed translates into this object. So to create our first Azure function, I will extract this part into its own method. I will move this method into its own class. I will call it function for now. Maybe we come up with a better name later on. Let's format the modifiers. Let's move the post data into its own class. Let's see if we still can run the test. And as you can see, it still succeeds. So we will now move the function and the data object into the function app project. I will correct its namespaces. And of course, the class needs to be public. Let's see if we can run it again. And as you can see, our function still passes. Of course, this isn't a Azure function already. If we deploy this to Azure, it certainly won't run. And how do we know? For an Azure function, you need all kinds of attributes decorated on your function in order for the runtime to recognize it. But instead of deploying the function or running it locally, I want to run it from an integration test. The integration test tells me exactly what is missing, and when it's running, I feel pretty confident that indeed my function behaves correctly and it's safe to deploy it to Azure. So I have this integration test project. There's nothing special about it. It contains all the usual suspects except for this test helpers package. That's mine. We will see later on what it adds to the table. In order to run a function in its runtime, we create a new host builder. We start the host. And let me see, I guess it's disposable. Yes, so we will correctly dispose it after the test finishes. And let's see if we can run our first integration test. That's a success. The next step is to retrieve the iWeb jobs, the iJobs, iWeb jobs host. What was it called? I can't remember. The iJob host for sure. And with that job host, we are able to one minute. We are able to call a function async, and the function we like to call is this function. We await the expression, and when we run this, you'll see that the iJobs host could not be found, resulting in a no reference exception here, and that's due to the fact that we need to configure web jobs first. If we run this function again, you see that we can't invoke the function because probably it's missing web jobs attributes. And that's correct, because we first need to specify the function name on our function. And if I compile this, the compiler is also telling me you are having the function name attribute, but you're lacking a trigger. So that's the last part of this Azure function. This makes this a true Azure function. And if I run it again, it will still fail, but now it's telling me nothing new. What I need to do is enable the HTTP extensions on the web jobs host. And this is enough to create a local host in your integration test that is able to run Azure functions during your test. The next error I receive is missing value for trigger parameter request, because as you can see, we need to specify a request on our Azure function. So the second part of this call is providing a dictionary with the required parameters, and we can put a request into here, and we've done this before. So for now I will copy paste this from my unit test, and if I run the test again, you will see that it passes. So that's only these 5 lines of code. I'm able to call an Azure function like it's deployed in Azure, like it's running locally, but now from my local integration test. Of course, this function doesn't do much, so let's transform this function into do something real work. I don't want to return its data, I want it to do something with this data. So back to our unit test. Instead of receiving the data, I will create a stub for the getter client, and I will create a mock for the issues client, and I make sure the stub returns the mock, and I will assert in the end that my issues received a call to create on a very specific repository with this title and this body. And if I run the test again, it will obviously fail. So I'm in the red state again. Now I can change the function. First, let's feed our stub into the function. Make it non-static and feed our stub into the constructor. Capture that in a local member. And now make sure that instead of returning the data, wait 1 second, we need this function to call, remove the static, and now we can call the create on the issues client with a new issue within the title from the data, and in the body the description from the data. Back to the test, run again, not all code paths return. Let's make the method void. Don't capture the data. Run the test again. And as you can see, our test passes. If I go back to the integration test and run it again, it obviously will fail, but it will tell me it's a very specific message why it fails. It's unable to resolve the service, the GitHub client, that it needs to activate our function. So what we need to do, we need to configure the services, and on our services we will add a singleton for our GitHub client, and I will not make the GitHub client myself. I will use AutoFixture for that. With the auto mocking container using and substitute, and I configure the members so that all properties of a generated fixture are also populated. So now we can create a fixture for our GitHub client, and that's enough to make our test run again. Of course, this test is lacking an assert, and maybe that is enough for an integration test, but if I want to test it, I could do the same thing like I did before. But since we are now using fixture to create our stubs and mocks, I will freeze the issues client, meaning that every time an issues client is resolved from the fixture, it will return the same instance. So I can use that to validate that it actually receives a call to that very specific repository with just any new issue. Await that expression, and now we even have an assertion in our integration test. So that's the first part of this talk. In the unit test, I actually validate the flow of my function, the internal working. I validate that it's correctly parsing JSON and that it used this data to invoke a service that I mocked. In the integration test, with only a couple of lines extra, I'm able to run that function inside the Azure runtime, Azure Functions runtime, I should say, and I validate the same things, but on top of that, I also validate all the required infrastructure that is needed to make a function a true Azure function. I don't do that for all my tests because, as you can see, they are already a bit slower than my unit tests, but it provides me with great feedback in a very early stage so that I get feedback that my Azure functions behaves as expected. So let's commit the changes. Integration test on HTTP triggered function. Now let's see if the same applies when building durable functions. I already created the folders here. Let's recreate them. I will copy my function into the starter and into the activities. I will fix the namespaces for that. And in the tests I will do the same. Activities, orchestrations, and starters. I will copy paste my test into the starter and into the activities. Adjust the namespaces. I will rename this one into create issue activity. I will rename this one into starter. I will rename this one into create issue test. Yeah, that's strange. Oh. Rename file to match type, yes. And I will call this one starter tests. And for the starter, I don't want it to actually invoke the GitHub client. Instead, I want to let me see if I can save delete it from here. No, maybe I can save delete it from here. For client is a substitute for the durable orchestration client, and instead of feeding it into the function, we will feed it into the method. And in the end, we want our client to have received a start new async. Here's the name of an orchestration that we will create in a minute. And it just receives the post data into the description. So let's create a new class, orchestration. Oh, I'm changing the wrong method. I should have changed the starter for sure, so let's copy paste this one back into here. And modify this one. And we read the starter here, of course. This one should be calling the create issue activity. And this one should be calling, yes, the original one. So back where we were, our starter only have to start new async, name of orchestration, with the data, await that call, await the expression, and let's see if this runs. That one was successful. Should start new orchestration. Our activity doesn't need all of the requests, it just needs post data, this is the title, some title, and the description, some description. So we don't have to deserialize here anymore. Of course, it's not an HTTP triggered function. And if you run that test, it is successful. Should create new issue. The last part, of course, is the orchestration tests. The function runs, it receives a stub for the durable orchestration context. And when it's ready, we expect that it received a call to stop, call activity async with post data with the name of the create new issue activity, create issue activity, and in its data it should just receive the data. Let fixture generate it for us. The context get input post data should return that data. And if we run this test, it obviously will fail because we did not implement the orchestration yet. And now I can go into the function name of create issue activity, and if we run the test again, and this is a bit tricky, I have to specify object as return type here, because if I don't do that, it's actually an extension method that I'm calling, and that extension method calls the method on the interface. And you can't stop extension methods, you have to stop the real methods of the interface. So I have to specify it here. I could leave it out here. So now I almost have this durable function up and running, except for the parts that it are not functions yet. Let's see if we can create an integration test for that also. So instead of calling our function, we will be calling our starter with the same request. And if I run this function, you will see it's not able to index the method starter because it's not able to bind the durable orchestration client. There are two things we need to fix. We need to add the durable task also, and we need to specify the attribute durable client on our argument. As you can see, our function call was successful, but we did not receive a call on our mock. And how comes that? Our function is already ready, but we did not receive a call on this stub. That's because our function successfully started the orchestration, but then who knows when that orchestration is finished. To help you with that, I have some helper methods in this small library where you can wait for durable functions to complete, where you can wait for orchestrations. So after I did the call, I can wait for an orchestration, and I can throw a method, throw an exception, if there was an exception during the execution of that orchestration. As you will see in a minute, this test now takes very long to run, and that's because an orchestration is started, but there is no orchestration, no function to pick it up. I will show you here in my storage explorer. I have this, and as you can see, there are two orchestrations pending, and after a minute or so they will disappear because there is no orchestration to pick it up. I will stop the function for now and fix the orchestration first. And before we start, we have another helper method to terminate all running orchestrations first and then purge the history so that we always start in a clean state. And if I run them again, you will see that there's a new orchestration pending. The other two should go away in a minute. And let's wait for the results of this orchestration. There's another thing I need to fix here, and that's the orchestration trigger. That makes it a real orchestration function. Cannot term it. That's nice. These are already terminated and that one is completed. Again, we did not receive a call, and there's a bit of feedback lacking here, because I was hoping that I also received, maybe it was from the compiler telling me that I need a trigger there. Yeah, this is a very nice description. Very good to have this error here, because for some reason this parameter cannot be called data. It cannot be in your integration test, but it also cannot when deployed to Azure. So it's good to have that feedback here. So just, you know, don't name your parameter data. So with a bit of work, we are able to run also durable functions inside an integration test, where we can wait for orchestrations to complete, see if they did not fail, clean up before the test, and wait for a successful run of the orchestration. What I did not tell you but did show you is To be able to run durable functions, you need to have Azure Storage up and running. On Windows, you can use the storage emulator for that. On other operating systems, I would recommend create your own storage Azure Storage in Azure, copy paste the connection string and put it into an environment variable called Azure Web Job Storage. That's the name of the variable that will be picked up, and you are able to run Azure functions on your non-Windows machine, and you are able to run Azure functions inside an integration test. So that's for all now. Check out my little library Azure Functions Test Helpers, where I describe in great detail how to set up integration tests for your Azure functions. I hope this was useful for you. Thanks for watching.
Hey, Mark, do you want to do the entire next part?
Thanks, Manuel, for that in-depth session on how to test your Azure functions.
You're welcome.
We, of course, know each other because we are working for the same company, Expert, and you also know that I am a big fan of Azure functions.
You know I'm a big fan of test-driven development.
Exactly, yeah. And now both worlds finally meet, so I really like that. I still haven't played it with your creation myself, unfortunately. I keep saying that I want to try it, and I still want to, but haven't done it yet. But actually saw you using the Octo client as well, which I'm also using in my Twitter bot. So there's definitely, I can just follow your tutorial almost from start to end, and have indeed better tests for my Twitter bot now. So that's a very good reason to do it. So can you tell me why actually did you make this? What was the problem you were seeing?
Great question. For me, I try to do everything from a test. So everything starts from a test. And yeah, that's not just a trick or so, but it's more of a mindset. Start from a test, see if you can validate your assumptions, and refactor your code from that. So when I was building Azure functions, I always try to do it from a test. And in the documentation, there is some documentation on how to write pure unit tests, but yet then you're still not validating if it's a proper Azure function, and you are still placing attributes on your code that are not required by a test. So I was figuring out how to achieve that. And a colleague at the bank I was working at the time was trying to create some code analysis rules to validate most of the parts. Mm-hmm. And I was like, yeah, why not try to run it in the actual runtime and see what feedback the runtime is giving us? Because in the past, I did the same trick on, for example, ASP.NET MVC, mm-hmm. where it's very hard to actually test your views, except when you host your web application in the test server, then you just can hit a GET request to the test server, and you get the actual rendering of your views. Mm-hmm. The same applies to WCF back in the days. I managed to host those services in locally in a service host, and by doing that, I got so much valuable feedback from that service host on the attributes that were required, the interface format that was required, the data contract attributes that were required. So it really helps you in a very early stage on the runtime requirements of your code. So I was like, let's do the same for Azure Functions. And it took me a lot of hours to figure out what bits and pieces I needed, mm-hmm. Because the Azure Functions, there are some MS build tricks in it that compiles your code into specific directories that you really need in that format, in that layout to host it normally. Yeah. But after a lot of reflection and diving into the code, I got exactly the bits and pieces that are needed to just run it in memory. So,
and those specific locations were then specific for the web jobs, I can imagine.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's good digging.
Yeah. Thank you.
Okay, so have you heard about others who are already using this? Are you seeing a bit of traction on GitHub or not yet? So this is your moment now to do a shout out from hey people, if you're running into these issues or want better quality, use this.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, I see a lot of people that do no testing at all. So that surprises me a bit because unit testing your Azure functions is quite easy, as I showed in the video.
Yeah.
So people should at least start doing that. And on top of that, it's not that hard to run an integration test, as I showed, and it gives you a lot of confidence that your functions will eventually run in an Azure web app.
Yeah.
So for me, that is very low-hanging fruit. It's a no-brainer. Just start doing it. Spend 10 minutes to set up your integration test, and
Exactly. Yeah. Do we need to do anything else to put this in automatic test for on a build server or something, or is it just use the package and let's go?
For normal functions, it's just you don't even have to use the package. It's all already there. But if you head over to my package in the README, you can read the bits and pieces that you need to set up such an integration test. When you want to test durable functions, then you need to enable Azure Storage on your build server, for example, the Azure Storage emulator, or you need to configure the Azure Web Jobs environment variable pointing to an actual Azure Storage container in Azure.
In Azure, yeah.
Because for hosting the durable functions, you need a storage account.
Yeah, exactly. Okay, cool. Thanks. Just one more, because this was more about orchestration and activity. Can we use the same procedure now for durable entities as well, for testing those?
Yeah, when durable entities was released, I upgraded my package and I had to replace all the classes that are now replaced by interfaces. But most of the parts just worked. And I had to figure out how durable entities work. And the only experience I have as durable entities is from that integration test to test my package. So I was able to test durable entities in the same way, but only durable entities instead of compared to orchestrations have a very long lifetime.
Yeah.
So with an orchestration, like I showed in the video, you can terminate all existing orchestrations right before you test, and you can purge all the history. And for entities, that's just not possible. Durable entities have an unlimited lifetime unless you delete the entity from itself. So you have to take care of that from your entities yourself. So testing that is a bit harder, I suppose.
Yeah.
Mainly the cleanup. The cleanup is a bit harder.
Yeah, exactly. I see that. Yeah. Okay. Not fair enough. Yeah. Cool. All right. That's for all the questions I have. I don't think there are any questions online. No, I think we're good. So thanks a lot, Manuel, for this very valuable session.
Yeah.
And I hope to see you online at the conference in May.
Yeah. Thank you.
Have you got anything else, Leon, maybe, or shall we go for a break now?
No, I'm good. All I want to say is that I love your wallpaper. It's nice.
Yeah, it's very calming paper.
Yeah. Cool. Thanks to my wife. It's a Van Gogh print.
Ooh.
She seems to have very good taste.
She has very good taste. Thank you.
All right, let's go for a 10-minute break now, and then we'll start with the next session from Olaf. Okay.
Yes.
See you soon.
See you in a bit.
See you in a bit.
Hey everyone, we are back. I hope you enjoyed the music during the break. Specifically added that since last time. So Leon is racing now to her chair and is also here again to join. Perfect.
I'm sorry.
No, that's fine. We do the introduction?
Yes, we do the introduction. So this is actually quite special because Olaf is the first ever Serverless Days Amsterdam speaker. You were the first speaker of the day.
That's such an honor. The first conference.
Yes, exactly. It was you and Tjerk last year, and you were speaking about. Let me just look to make sure. But Serverless is a bank.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah. Yeah, no, a great conference. I didn't know it was the first conference, but hopefully many more to come, right?
Well,
Definitely.
you were technically given the keynote, so I hope you enjoyed that.
No, I really did. It was quite the honor.
Yeah, awesome. So, Olaf, tell us a bit about yourself. How about that?
Yeah, sure. I work over at Manuel as an IT architect. And over at Manuel, we do a lot of serverless and we do a lot of AWS. But believe it or not, before this, I have worked for other banks and also on other technologies. So I actually have a history with Microsoft technology. And I also have done a lot of mobile development. And over at Manuel, I must say I'm having a lot of fun with serverless, and also all the things around it. Right, a bank is a very interesting place to work if you're an IT architect, because it goes from card transactions to know your customer, anti-money laundering, a lot of compliance, a lot of security, and it's pretty much where everything comes together.
Yeah.
Besides that, I once read that the longer you work in financial services, the less likely you are able to succeed outside of it. So I better like it.
You're stuck.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Luckily, it doesn't cost me a lot of effort.
Well, I hope you still like it, though. If not, I'm sure there are lots of companies that are still hiring.
Oh, I bet. No, but I must say, Manuel and the things we've been doing there over the last 2 years, and also the ambitions we have for this year, it's a great place. It's a great place to work. As a developer, as an IT architect, or in any other role. It's a small company, and because it being a small company and it pretty much doing everything that any other bank also needs to do, right? You really we have a lot of talented people, and everybody has a big effect and impact on the success of the company. So no, I'm not looking around. No. If there is people that after this presentation might be interested to join, then always feel free to drop me a note. Don't believe we're actively recruiting at this moment, but if talent comes along, then definitely happy to look into that.
Awesome. Cool. Are we ready to go with your talk? Are you ready?
Yeah. You need to share your screen, I think, still, and then we're good to go.
Yeah. Well, it's probably going to take a minute or so to set everything up, right? So
no worries. We can briefly chat about. Oh, sorry.
No, I was just suggesting that we might need another break with nice music again. But...
This is you, right?
No, you know what? So as a public service announcement, we can talk about, because there was a press conference by the PM, right? Mm-hmm. Prime Minister.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So, and I don't speak any Dutch, but I have a friend who's graciously translated stuff for me. So I mean, as a public service announcement. I can read off what he told me, what he said. So gradually change the current ruling step by step. Health figures are looking well, but the pressure is high on the health system. Don't expect quick changes. So the primary schools will open again after the May holiday, partly. So that's 11th of May. High schools will be open again 1st of June. Kids can go outside to do sports, but maximum 12 of age. Not sure why that is. Probably like small children have to go outside. Events are still canceled until the 1st of September. No sports events, parties, festivals, anything like that. Barbers, physical therapy, beauty centers are still closed. And lastly, stay home, work from home, go out by yourself, and keep distance.
Okay.
I was looking
thanks for the
forward
update.
to
Yeah, here you go.
Primary schools are open. That's a start.
Yeah.
Yes, I'm going to stay at home no matter what. That's just my life anyway, so I'm cool.
All right.
That's because you're in IT or you're German now. Can you guys? Yeah, maybe.
Yes, we saw your screen. It
Yeah.
looked good.
Okay.
Yeah. If you can show the end, then I'm gonna switch, and then off you go. Yeah.
Okay.
Let's go.
Yeah.
Awesome. Here you go.
Cool. So I'm on. Good evening to everybody. Happy to have you here. My name is Olaf Conijn, and I work as an IT architect over at Manuel. Manuel is a small bank based in Amsterdam, and we are a full subsidiary of the ABN AMRO. And then most people might know us from our savings products or mortgages that we have had for quite some time. We have customers in the Netherlands and Germany, but nowadays we're actually focusing really hard on creating a new product. And we call this a savings and payment product. It's because it's a payment account that you can get a interest on. And just like any other savings product, the interest is probably very low, but still, it's more than nothing. You can see it on the right. It comes with a couple of cool features in organizing your money into different wallets, and this allows you to control your spending or get more confidence in being able to make the end of the month. We are a small organization, especially if you compare that to other banks. And one of the things we believe we can differentiate in is having a cool UX and good features for our customers. Even more so, we are free at the moment, so you can just get into the App Store, you get the app, and you can get a card for free. And meanwhile, we are building awesome premium features that we're going to add to the application in time to come. So over at Manuel, we do a lot of serverless application development, and we do this on AWS. And for us, this is all about focus. Having focus on the customer features we built. Cost efficiency is something that greatly improved when we went to serverless. And something that is very important for us as well is being able to demonstrate that we are in control and we are compliant with all sorts of internal policies, but also rules and regulations. And serverless helps us a great deal in doing that. We have less effort in maintaining the software we build. We can quickly go from development to test to acceptance to production. It's all pay-per-use. And AWS, in our case, does a lot of the heavy lifting when it comes to compliancy and certifications like PCI or ISO standards. Now, if we talk about serverless, we talk about a lot more than just functions as a service. Maybe less so now than a couple of years ago, but people used to think that the two concepts were interchangeable. If you were doing fast, and that might be serverless, or serverless might evolve around fast. But we use a great deal of AWS services to build our applications with. And some of these services satisfy functional requirements like Lambda, of course, but also DynamoDB for storage or step functions in orchestrating longer processes. But a lot of others do non-functional requirements like observability in CloudWatch or the retry behavior that SQS gets you. And then for us, very important, of course, is IT security requirements. And we solve a lot of these problems with actually identity access management and AWS organizations. But we call this serverless because all the services or the services that we use most are all provided by AWS and inherently scalable, high available, and they don't require any form of capacity planning, and don't require us to do any host security because that's already done by AWS. And this is what makes these services very appealing to us and allows us to focus on customer features. Now, what about AWS organizations? AWS organizations, and also when I was asked to give this presentation, the question was, why would people care about AWS organizations? It's an account management service. You get an API to create new AWS accounts. It doesn't do anything in terms of building functionality. It gives you some cost insights in billing per account, which is actually really useful. And then it allows you organizing all the AWS accounts that you have into a tree structure and apply security policies to it. But then, for the average Joe, why would you care? I've thought about it long and hard. This is probably the shortest answer that I can come up with. You should care about using multiple AWS accounts for the same reason that you're not running production software on development environments. If you're putting all your software and all your different environments in the same AWS accounts, then of course, at some point, somebody might make a mistake, and you don't want that mistake to affect your production software. So this is probably the shortest answer, at least I could come up with, on why you should care about AWS organizations and why you should have multiple AWS accounts. There is a lot of other benefits, though. What we just discussed is what we call limiting the blast radius, because if somebody accidentally makes a mistake, then you would like that mistake or the impact of that mistake to be limited. And you can do that by putting your software in different AWS accounts. But it also has benefits when it comes to scalability. For instance, we have multiple development teams that all work in their own AWS account. And this means that every development team gets their own resource limits, is allowed to make up to 100 S3 buckets, for instance. And by the time they hit this limit, they're able to clean it up themselves without having to consult other teams, whether they might be using those resources or not. It greatly simplifies implementing least privilege and doing data governance. Because if you have a database somewhere that contains production data, putting this into a separate AWS account is a great way of ensuring that not just anyone is able to access it. And this is also a very powerful thing that AWS organizations and multiple accounts give you. And then there is the cost monitoring thing. So people used to keep track of the cost of every service by coming up with all sorts of schemes in tagging their resource in AWS and then coming up with spent reports based on those tags. If you place your resources in multiple AWS accounts, you get a bill for every AWS account. And this then gets consolidated into the master account, but you're still able to get good insight on what every specific account does. About the security, let's do a somewhat more elaborate thought exercise. If you are on AWS and you are building serverless applications, then they might consist out of different components like API gateways and Lambdas or a DynamoDB database somewhere. You still have the service as a unit of deployment. So typically you deploy one service and then you work on the next one, you deploy the next one. And you have a product which eventually is the value you deliver to your customer, but you do this in multiple environments. Now, the idea with having a service as a unit of deployment is kind of that you can keep things separate, right? The database is local to the service, the code and the components are local to the service. But if you look at how identity and access management is done within AWS, all of the components within the same accounts are accessible by default by all the other things within that account. And this doesn't mean that you are not able to do least privilege, because there's two types of security policies in AWS. One is the resource policy, where you define who can access the DynamoDB database or who's able to call the Lambda function. And then you have the identity policy. And this is what most people use to do least privilege with. You're able to only call this Lambda function if you have a specific role, or the role the Lambda function runs in is only allowed to read the database, not to write it. But still, by the time you have 100, 500, maybe 1,000 of these components, and all sorts of different roles or users or processes that log into it, doing applying least privilege as a principle becomes very hard. And this is where AWS organizations probably helps us the most. Anything that is cross-account by default is not allowed. And therefore you use these accounts to become like little security boundaries for the resources that live within them. So then the question becomes, why not use AWS organizations? And I could think of a couple. Maybe other people have other reasons not to. But by now you hopefully know and understand some of the benefits. Maybe you still don't care a whole lot, which is fine. And then one of the things that would hold a lot of people back is the complexity in manage the identity access management and the resource, the security policies that do cross account. And guess what? Over at Money, we've invested a lot in building up a good process in managing these accounts. And we created a tool that fixes most of this, and we put it online on GitHub. So it's out there as open source, and I would like to show you how this tool works. So the tool is called AWS Organization Formation, and it evolves around 3 different use cases. The first one is it's an implementation of doing infrastructure as code for AWS organizations, because unfortunately there's no CloudFormation support for AWS organizations. It allows you to write CloudFormation, so infrastructure as code, for your AWS accounts and distribute this cross-account and cross-region, but then also do references between these templates. And we built a continuous delivery solution that allows you to change these tasks in a file and run them as a continuous delivery process. So to dive into the first use case, infrastructure as code for AWS organizations. One of the things, and I'll show this right after this slide, one of the things the code does, it can look at your current AWS organization. So whether you created this with landing zones or another tool, maybe you just clicked it together in the console, it can look at the resources you have in your AWS organization and can generate an infrastructure as code file based on that. You can use the infrastructure as code file to create new AWS accounts or organizational units or service control policies, as they're called. And these are the resources that are part of the AWS organization service. It scales, so you can have multiple of these models for your AWS organization. So you could have a model that is all about, I don't know, the data lake implementation you have. You might have another one that is only for the development and another one for the production accounts. And it allows you to set up a number of other things that you would probably want to set up when creating new accounts. So for this, I will switch over to, there's Mark and Leon. For this, I will switch over to Visual Studio Code. And as you guys can see, I just installed the AWS Organization Formation tool as a global NPM module. And this means that I should be able to execute that on the command line. And I'm using version 0.9.4. Now, I prepared a couple of scripts, so you don't have to watch me type all the time. But what I'll do is I'll first show you the AWS organization that I have. And this is a sandbox organization that I use. And in my sandbox organization, I have 3 organizational units. So that's a production unit for my production accounts, a development unit for my development accounts, and a shared unit for accounts that might contain shared resources like users or shared services. What I'll do with the tool is I'll run the init command, and I'll feed it the name of the organization file that I would like to generate. I need to specify the region because this will create a bucket, and I give it a profile, which is an AWS profile, and this works just like with the AWS CLI that you might be familiar with. So as I run this tool, a number of things will happen. It will create the only resource that it needs to create, and this is an S3 bucket, which we can have a peek at. And the S3 bucket is there to store the state that is used to determine. You'll just have to believe me. The state that is there to determine what was there in the previous time you updated your organization, and therefore what the delta would be for the next update. And here, the organization as code, the infrastructure as code file is generated with exactly what I had in my organization. So there is a root attribute called organization. There's my master account. And the master account is a special account because you need to have one. And this is the account that the AWS organization server runs in. Then there's our organizational root, and I can use this to apply security or service control policies. We see the production and the development organizational units. And here we also see that there's accounts attached to these organizational units. So this is true. We saw this. Development accounts are within the development OU, and I have one production account that is part of the production OU. And then these are my accounts. And I have a production account here, and this one happens to have a couple of tags. So accounts can be tagged to add other metadata to them. It took out my IAM alias out of the console and put it here, and I can change this, and I can then do an update. And if you go down the list of accounts at the bottom, you see the service control policies, which are defined here. And these can be used to attach to organizational units or the organizational routes to restrict what is allowed to be done in any of these accounts. As I said, it has a state bucket, which it uses to keep track of what has been changed. And this means that if I run the tool with the update command, it will probably return very quickly because it realizes there's no state changes in between here and the previous time it ran, and there's no work to be done. Well, as this is running, we can start adding a new production account. So the tool in the bottom already terminated with there's no work to be done. I can add a production account too. I need to give this an account name. I can take the account ID off. This was in the generated infrastructure as code file, and it's handy to have there, just in case you're looking for a central place to find your account IDs. And I might want to give this a tag, and I could give this a budget alarm threshold, and I'll leave that there. And this will, the next time I run, create an account called production2 account. And if I go up to the organizational unit I use for my production accounts, I can add this to the list using !ref. And if I update the, I forgot to change the logical name here. I already had a production2 account. So we'll call this production3. Did that go well? I do believe so. Well, fingers crossed. Well, this makes sense as well. So it says now we have multiple accounts with the production accounts2 name. And I'll take the third one here. I'll put that there. I'll give this a 3 and this a 3 as well. And fingers crossed. And lo and behold, this will now create a new AWS account, and it will add it to the production organizational unit in my AWS organization service. So I'll leave that run for a little bit. I can change any number of. Well, then you'll just have to trust me with this. One of the things you'll get into if you have these organizations and you don't have a lot of AWS spent is that you need to create a ticket with support to increase the number of accounts you can make within your organization. There is a limit on the amount of AWS accounts you're allowed to make, and I think I just hit that limit. So that is somewhat unfortunate. Let's take that account out and let's try something else. Let's change the tag value of one of the other accounts. I just want to see this command run now. See it succeed. The good thing, because it comes with an init command that is able to generate a new infrastructure as code file based on whatever is in your AWS organization for real, is that you can, at any point in time, you can throw the organization file away and you can recreate it with the init command. So now this actually did work. So it updated my account and it committed the hash. And now I should have changed that tag. So let's do that. Let's recreate the organization file. I'll throw this one away. We're not going to see the account that I intended to create, but it doesn't matter. And let's use another account. Let's use another command that is called the init pipeline command. And what this will do for us, it will do exactly what we did a moment ago. It will create the organization infrastructure as code file. But additionally, it will create a code commit source code repository in AWS. It will create a pipeline, and it will set everything up for me to be able to make changes to the infrastructure as code file and have a pipeline run whenever it changed. So as you can see, this is the source code repository that I just created by running the commands. The pipeline is not there yet, so it's still creating the code commit and code builds resources. And what we can see here is the code it did an initial check-in with. So on the organization.yaml file, you can see exactly the same code that it did generate on my local machine, but it's not checked into Git. And what it also did, it created a build spec. So every time a build runs, it will execute this command. And this is org formation perform tasks. And then there is a task file that can be used to add other tasks to the build as well. So if you think about baselining your accounts with AWS resources, then those tasks can be placed in a task file. And at the moment, there's two tasks here. One is the update organization. So every time you do a commit to the repository, it will build and it will update your organization based on your organization.yaml file. And then it will also allow you to manage the CI/CD pipeline it had built as part of that init pipeline commands, make updates to it and deploy updates to that. Because this refers to a stack, templates.org.formation build, which is placed in the templates folder. And this contains the CloudFormation that was used to create the repository and the build pipeline and the code build projects that we just executed over the command line. So you can extend this, it's already there, and you can use org.formation to manage this pipeline. So this now ran, and I think it's fair to go to the next feature that we have, which is organization annotated CloudFormation. Now, CloudFormation works really well, but CloudFormation works really well within the context of a single account and a single region. Resources you can reference within the same account and region. Imports can be used to import values that are exported by other stacks within the same region and account. But what we did with the tool is we added annotations to CloudFormation to support a number of other use cases. One, because you import the organization file with the accounts and the metadata, and you can use that information from within your CloudFormation templates. But we also created extensions to do exclamation mark ref for resources across different accounts. And then there is a couple of other things, like you can create resources for each account that you have selected in your templates. Now this sounds a bit like CloudFormation stack sets, and I get that question every once in a while. Why didn't you settle on CloudFormation stack sets? CloudFormation stack sets is what we built our first version of this tool with. And CloudFormation stack sets allows you to deploy CloudFormation across multiple accounts and different regions. But the problem is that with stack sets, every account and region you deploy your resources to needs to be proficient with exact that set of resources. And what we do with OrgFormation is we package resources that need to go to different accounts in the same template. Because most of the things we do actually do not just apply to a single account, but these are patterns that go cross accounts. You might have a role that needs to be assumed from a different account, and then you might need to have an alarm that needs to go into a notification account and really result in a notification over Ops Genie or something or the other. These are all problems. If you need to break them down to specific templates per account, it would require you to write 4 or 5 different templates. And as a result of this, our first solution ended up having somewhere in between 150 and 170 different templates and tasks that were all put together. And OrgFormation is able to define all of these things in a single template, and that really eases our job in being able to manage all of that. It's also modeled after CloudFormation, so any CloudFormation syntax it does support. The annotations work a bit like how TypeScript compiles to JavaScript. It pre-processes the CloudFormation template that eventually will be executed by CloudFormation. And the other thing, as opposed to, for instance, stack sets, we use it to deploy a whole lot of other things as well. So we do CloudFormation, but also serverless.com framework and even CDK workloads. So to understand how this annotation of CloudFormation works, we have a CloudTrail setup that I would like to show you. And this is the schematic of it. We have a compliance account that contains a S3 bucket that will be used as the storage for CloudTrail events. And then in every account with a tag or any other selector, we will provision the CloudTrail service, and we will also provision CloudWatch logs. And as you can see, this is a multi-account problem because the CloudTrail needs to be able to access the S3 bucket, and the S3 bucket needs to only be accessible from within the accounts that have CloudTrail. There's more examples like these if you tap on the link in the presentation. So this is the template that would be able to create the resources that we just saw. And this looks very much like CloudFormation. We include the organization file, and this is important because then we can reference resources from within the organization file within this template. We set up a default binding or a default organization binding region, which means that whenever we are targeting accounts, then if we don't specifically specify the region the template needs to be executed with, it will all go to the EU Central 1 region. And then there is a section that we've added that is called organization bindings. And in the organization bindings, you define where resources need to go to. So I have a binding set up with the account, the shared compliance account, and I will use this to deploy the S3 bucket and the S3 bucket policy resources to. Then I have another binding set up, which is for my CloudTrail. And typically, you would want to go this to every account, or you could use any of the other selectors, like accounts with tags. But in this case, because we're going to look at the result of generating the CloudFormation, I'm only executing it against the master account. Now, the rest of it is just CloudFormation, except for that for every resource, we specify where that resource needs to be deployed to. And as you see, my S3 bucket goes to the CloudTrail bucket binding, which is the compliance account, as does my S3 bucket policy. And then the CloudTrail and the CloudTrail log group and the CloudTrail itself need to go to all the other accounts, which could be more than one. And this is an interesting bit. This is where we reference with the CloudFormation syntax the CloudTrail S3 bucket from within the CloudTrail resource. And remember, the CloudTrail S3 bucket goes to the compliance account, and this CloudTrail resource goes to any other account, might also be the same account. But this is what we mean with cross-account references. As I said, this will all be converted into CloudFormation, and the best way to show this is by running the print stacks command. So you type org-formation print stacks, then you reference the template that you would like to process. It needs to have a stack name. Again, I need to provide my org-formation profile. Okay, so let's try this again. Well, there you go. It's ended up clearly not being my thing to do live coding today. But what we see here is we had the input file, we had the CloudFormation file that describes how I would like my CloudTrail and my S3 bucket to be set up and the references in between them. You include the organization file that allows us to reference part of the organization. And what we did do is we ran the print stacks command that now generated CloudFormation syntax in this case in JSON. That will show us what will be deployed where. So this is my master account, and this is my compliance account. And if we look at the resources that will be deployed to my compliance account, we see this contains the CloudTrail S3 bucket, and it has a name with the ID. This is one of the places where I believe we referenced the shared compliance account. So here we use information outside of the organization file to compose a name for my S3 bucket. And we have the bucket policy that also needs to go to the compliance account. And then here there is an output added to this CloudFormation file. And this output is a reference to the CloudTrail S3 bucket. The CloudTrail S3 bucket, the output is exactly this expression, because this expression is copied into an output so that in the other templates, there where we refer to the S3 buckets, it can be used as a parameter. And the tool will link those two up. So it will create a dependency from one stack to the other. It will first deploy the S3 bucket as the CloudTrail template depends on it. And here there's resources that are coming from the CloudFormation file that we executed. And then here for the S3 bucket name, instead of having a reference to the bucket itself, which we can't do with CloudFormation, it has a reference to the parameter that is used to contain the exports from the previous account. And you can do this to solve any number of cross-account problem, but this is useful if you're thinking of the scenarios in baselining your accounts in your multi-account setup. And I can't go through all of them, but on GitHub, where the project is hosted, there is a examples folder. And I think over here you have a number of examples of what you could do, as well as the templates on how to create these CloudFormation files that can be executed with the org-formation tool and solve all of these neat little problems that you wouldn't be able to do with CloudFormation before. Now, last but not least, we saw the creation of a pipeline in AWS by the CLI, which was pretty cool, and this was used to create a task file. Now we use these tasks files a lot because in our AWS organization we have a lot of things that we provide as a platform service. And all these platform services end up being org-formation or CloudFormation templates that are included in one of these tasks files. So whenever we commit to Monster, it will be deployed across the organization. Everybody will be able to use them. Now these tasks files also are modeled a bit after CloudFormation, so you can do a depends on. We have different types of tasks the task file that was generated for the pipeline that does the organization update. We have an update organization and an update stacks to be able to execute templates like the CloudTrail template that we saw. You can also include other task files, but we also use tasks for CDK deployments or serverless deployments. And you can find a lot more information about this on GitHub. There's also one point in which we can extend this process, the process of account creation, because we were able to automate a lot. There's still a couple of things that need to be done, and sometimes by different other departments when we create a new AWS account in using this tool. So there's an event bridge event that will be emitted if an account is created. And we use this to create to run a step function that then will send emails to various people to remind them of their duties and their tasks when we create these AWS accounts. And an example of that is also on GitHub. And then these task files, we are currently working on this, support all sorts of expressions, but also imports of CloudFormation exports, pretty much in the same way you would expect to be able to work with these if you were in CloudFormation. So if you understand CloudFormation, you like to work with CloudFormation, this would all feel very natural for you to use. So that's about it. I hope you enjoyed the presentation. I hope that if there's one thing that you can take out of this is an interest into the AWS organization service. Of course, feel free to try the org-formation tool. There's a link to GitHub below, or to reach out to me. And it's open source, so anyone that wants to contribute by questions, issues, or giving stars, wants to contribute code by pull requests, absolutely more than welcome. And feel free to contact me on any of those. So thank you.
Cool.
And we're back.
Thank you, Olaf.
Yeah, thanks.
Awesome.
Was that not overwhelmingly cool?
It was. I'm barely catching my breath. So let's see. So I don't think we have questions from the audience at the moment, but I would like to know what you have kind of in store, maybe. Is something that is super interesting or fun working on it right now?
For me, I still having done a lot of this account baselining. So you can imagine we have some 40, 50 AWS accounts that we need to manage the baseline for, and just the complexity of having to piece everything together in different infrastructure as code files. Any time I can reduce a problem that required probably then a bunch of these templates into something that I can describe in a single template with these cross-account references or other little tricks that we added to it, because there's a long list of features that the tool supports. That's just pure joy. So being able to take a problem that requires a lot of manual work and a lot of different templates into a concise model of the thing you actually wanted to achieve in the first place, and know it's least privileged. It all makes sense. That is something that gets me very excited.
Awesome. Yeah, sounds great. So if people are interested, they can just go to the GitHub repo and contribute, right?
Yeah, no, download it, try it out. Whatever technology you're using for managing AWS organizations, if it's in AWS, you can start using this tool. You can move away from this tool 2 weeks later if you want, and then continue the way you were. We are still migrating from our previous tool to this tool, and that is something that we also do step by step. But yeah, please feel free to try it out and give us feedback. And looking forward to that.
Cool. Thanks so much for the talk.
Oh, thank you guys for having me.
Okay. Thanks, Olaf.
Great to have you again.
Bye.
Bye. Okay, so I think I have to share my screen again. Yes.
Yep.
Okay. Let me know if we're